the show for today. We're talking to Dr. James Baxter, who is giving us information relative to Africans in public education, African Americans in public education. And we're now talking about the so-named historical black institutions of higher education, or more specifically, historical black colleges. And of course, Dr. Baxter, let's start off again by dealing finally with the HBCs and moving forward in reference to African Americans in public education.
All right, Dr. Haney, when we go back and we look at the post-antebellum period, that period after the Civil War, that period referred to as Reconstruction, we see then the black historical colleges being established. Not only that, we see the Reconstruction period in the last phase. But one thing we must remember, even though blacks were beginning to read and write, we also must remember that out of that Reconstruction period came what we refer to as the Negro Amendments, the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendment, along with the ongoing education of the freedmen. And schools being established by newly established black churches, along with the northern missionaries coming south. We must understand the greatest achievement that came out of the Reconstruction period and would be the launching pad for us as a people at the turn of the 20th century would be that of the right to vote. It would be that of education, which has always been our a ticket to the promised land. We must also remember that because of the education that we received, it enabled us to move forward as it relates to the well-meaning of economics. Well, as Reconstruction began to come to an end, we must understand at the close of Reconstruction, which officially ends in the year 1877, with the election by way of the Compromise of 1876, with the election in the House of Representatives of Rutherford B. Hayes as President of the United States of America. The last of the federal troops were pulled out of the South. Well, what does this mean? It means simply this: the federal government abandoned the Negro or the freedman in the South and left over 3.5 million plus people of color at the disposal, at the mercy of the redeeming Democrats. These were the ex-Confederates that had control of their state governments before the Civil War. These are the ex-Confederate officials who were disenfranchised because of their involvement in the Confederate government, which withdrew from these United States of America. Now they are back in control of their state governments as redeemers. And what they will do is to take away all of the strides of freedoms, all of the rights, all of the things that were accomplished during the Reconstruction period. Their goal was to take us back to where we once were, okay? Now, so we're in this period where people of color are being subjected. They're being terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. They're being terrorized by other vigilante groups. New voting rights are new voting laws are being imposed. Now we have the grandfather clause. Now we have the poll tax. Now we have the literacy test. And eventually, we find ourselves with no black politicians at the local level, the state level, the federal level. So then it's open season now for Southerners to turn back the clock and place people of color back where they were before the war. It was not a physical slavery, but it was a mental slavery. We were set back from an economic point of view. Well, now we come up to the year 1896. Homer Plessy. His case goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Homer Plessy made what white Southerners would call a major mistake. He wanted to be seated in a boxcar that was restricted to him because of the color of his skin. His case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled that separate but equal was constitutional. Well, that gives rise then to what becomes known as the Jim Crow era.
All right.
Now, after 1896, what we then have in America, two distinct worlds, one black and one white.
Okay.
It gives rise then to the color theater, the white theater, the colored water fountain, the white water fountain, the colored park, the white park, the colored school. And let's stop at the colored school because they were separate, but they were not equal. I remember growing up in the old city of Nashville, I attended the Wharton School. And at the old Wharton School, my first grade classroom was in the basement. When it rained on us in the basement. There were those cold winter mornings where there was no coal for the furnace. We sat there in our coats, and if we blowed our breath,
you can see it in
we could see our breath, but we still learned. Even though we received the second class, the hand-me-down textbooks that they didn't want and had used and abused, when they got the new ones, we got the old ones. But Dr. Haney, I served notice today that it did not stop us from excelling and learning because we had Negro educators who knew the importance of education and who realized that it was our meal ticket, it was our ticket to the promised land. So even though we were being taught in adverse situations, they were determined that we were going to get a quality education because they knew that a mind
is a terrible thing.
Is a terrible thing to waste.
Now, over the last 3 minutes, when you look at African American public education today, what do you find? Has the advent of President Obama has that done anything to help elevate higher education among Africans? What do you think the situation is?
Obama has made a great stride in improving quality education in America across the board.
Everybody. Good.
Across the board. He calls it race to the top. The Obama administration here in our native great state of Tennessee, we were awarded $800 million here in Tennessee to improve quality education all across the state. But Dr. Haney, we must understand, it's good to have the money. But sometimes throwing money at a situation does not mean you have solved the problem. See, I have a problem sometimes when we take good money and throw it after bad money or throw it in the wind. Now, what I'm saying then with that, we do need the $800 million. But is the $800 million really being trickled down to those who really need the money in order to elevate and move forward with their future? Well, what is happening then in public education? The poor, and especially African American students, and I want to emphasize African American males, we are being miseducated. See, it's one thing to be under the same roof with majority people, but I can be under the same roof and still be what? Miseducated. When I'm being taught by people who does not like me, who does not have any compassion or love for me, people who teach at me and not to me, people who does not understand my subculture, not trying to understand, people who misunderstand the goal of public education. That's why it's called public education. We educate everybody. And by the way, public education was an achievement, or was a system that came out of the Reconstruction period. We must understand that we educate everybody. But when we look at public education today, and especially in Tennessee, we have what they call magnet schools.
Okay, well, let's stop here, Dr. Baxter, because I think we're just about running out of time.
All right.
And I appreciate your passion.
Very good.
But we're just about out of time, and let us encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning.
Go to CW58.tv for contests, games, and the latest on your favorite shows.
Into each life, a little rain must fall. And what rains on our cities flows into what we drink. The Arbor Day Foundation invites you to plant trees in your community, so the water that flows into our rivers and streams will be clean and safe. The trees in your town also provide shade and song and beauty, clean air, lower energy costs, and higher property values. They are a source of life and a source of pride. Because when a town shows a commitment to planting and caring for trees, it can become a Tree City USA. Tree City USAs have one thing in common. They value trees and all that they do for us. Visit arborday.org to find out how to plant the right trees in the right place. To support Tree City USA where you live, go to arborday.org, because a little rain must fall.
But where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Detroit.
Okay, that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
I'm from Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, were you in a tough neighborhood?
Yeah, I was on the west side of town. It was pretty tough. I mean,
there's some characters there.
Yeah, there's some characters there.
But I love Detroit, but there's some characters there.
They know it, too. They know it. There's some characters there.
Byron Allen coming to you from Entertainment Studios, and this is The American Athlete. Get ready to hang out with some of the world's greatest sports superstars. Sugar Ray Leonard.
So I'm saying this is great, but nah, man, well, where do I go from here?
Baseball legend Mike Schmidt.
You know, Babe Ruth and I are buddies. Never met him, but...
And Jerome Bettis.
In this day and age, you have to commit yourself. And, if you don't love what you're doing, it's going to show.
How you doing, man?
Okay, baby, how you doing?
It's good to see you.
It's good seeing you.
Last time I saw you was on
Hawaii.
the beach, Maui.
Hawaii.
There you go. Chasing the kids around.
As usual?
As usual.
As
Keep you
usual.
in shape. How many kids now?
4.
And how's Bernadette?
She's doing fine, man. You know, just, I mean, everything's great. You know, the kids are just getting bigger and more independent. Life is wonderful, man. At this point in our lives, you know, we're able to really pick and choose and enjoy life.
Yeah. You happy to be out of the ring?
Yes. You know, I tell you, I'm glad you asked that question, because out of all the years I was a boxer, over 30-some years, at this point in my life, I'm 48, I'll be 49 in May 17th. At this point in my life, I am the happiest I've ever been before from day one. And the reason I say that is because now I'm outside the circle. I'm outside, I can breathe, I can look around, I can smell the roses. I didn't really truly enjoy myself. In fact, I was having fun, but didn't know what kind of fun I was having, if that makes any sense. Now, I know my kids go to school, I know that I help them with their homework. I call my kid, little Ray up on the phone and ask him about real estate. I talk to Jarrell, I talk to my wife. Life is great, life is structured. I have a direction, I know where I'm going. That's a big difference, man.
At what point did you know it was time for you to get out of the ring? For good?
When, I've always said that I know it's time to quit when the other guy hits me more times than I hit him. That happened a couple times, so it took two fights to decide upon that. But, you know, my last fight, I was 40 years old, and should I have been in the ring? Maybe not, but I had to push myself to the edge to see how far I can go. and wasn't successful, and I got out. I'm okay, so no regrets whatsoever, no regrets at all.
Talk a little bit about winning the gold medal, because you have had such an amazing career. People forgot you won the gold medal.
That's like, you know, one of my most cherished moments. For me, it was kind of bittersweet because I knew that was my last amateur fight. So I'm saying, this is great, but nah, man, but where do I go from here? Because I had no future, I had no plans of fighting professionally. That was it.
Is that right?
Oh, for sure. My hands were so badly bruised. And I was happy but sad. So it was kind of a strange feeling.
What were you going to do?
You know, I didn't really know. I just knew that boxing would not be in my forecast, you know, as a professional fighter. It wasn't until I got home and I realized my father was a few days from passing away. He had contracted spinal meningitis, tuberculosis, and he was almost in a coma. So he was hospitalized, and the bills, hospital bills, were just astronomical. We had no money. So a friend of mine, and also my trainer, James Morton, said, Ray, you gotta take advantage of this exposure. You gotta turn pro right now, and then you can make some money for your family. He was right, and I did that for that reason. I had no intention of turning pro.
So you go pro. Who's the first one?
Louis the Bull Vega. About that tall. About that tall. No, maybe that tall. With his hat, with the hat on. His I beat him in Baltimore in February of 1977.
And the name, Sugar Ray, where'd it come from?
Sugar Ray Robinson, because I competed in the 72 Olympic trials. I was 16, and I made it to the quarterfinals. Inexperience was a major part. And I lost in the quarterfinals, and I found myself in the dressing room crying, because someone said, you know, God, son, you could have made it to the Olympics. And I looked at him, what? He said, you were almost there. And it hit me that I lost. And I just broke down. And a guy walked up to me, this coach, the late Sergeant Thomas Johnson, good man. He said, Sugar man, don't worry about it. You'll be more experienced for 1976. That'll be your year. That'll be your year. A deep voice, that'll be your year. I looked at him, and from then on out, Sugar Ray Leonard. So